Hey, everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you were on the lifeboat. I was kicking it here with Johnny Scoville, my brother next to me. We were discussing the more important things in life. For instance, clear or green for the morning? What do you think? Clear?
I agree.
You like green?
I do.
All right. Johnny Scoville has made the call, and I am going green. So, should we do a little roll call? We'll run off everyone that doesn't like me, and then we'll get to some heavy stuff here. Chili Mancer, good to see you. Davey, how are you? Hippie Chick, what's happening? Alex Moore, Tammy, Body Illusion, Mischief Managed. Hey, Kate Murphy. Teresa Baldessari, glad that you're here. The Midnight Show. Tara, how are you? Nicola, good to see you. Jen Marie, I'm glad you're here. Jason P, do you love the new thumbnail? Jason P stepping out. Pajama Pixie, good to see you. Hey, Scoville, she says. Hey, Kristen Melinda. They're green. Yeah, they are kind of bluish. Go aquamarine. Think aquamarine-ish kind of green. Valerie 102. You know what? We're throwing this one up right now for Valerie 102. Valerie 102 is in the process of moving. And if you've not done that, there's very few things on planet Earth.
I'd rather gargle gravel.
Well, Johnny Scoville would rather say that again.
Gargle gravel.
Gargle gravel. That sounds like we gargle gravel. I kind of got that sound, don't we? Bodica says, "Hello, Johnny. I'm sorry, you attended a smart recovery meeting for the first time in a long time, and connection was mentioned. We all need connection. Boy, do we. But they mentioned it? Does that not make you want to like stomp your foot and pump your fist in the air? Huh? Next time I move, I'm moving into a tent. I respect the crap out of that. If you really want to know the truth, I get that. Johnny Scoville says, yeah.
We've said that before.
Do you know why Maya, aka Alice in Hoarderland? I'm sorry, Alice in Art Supply Hoarderland. By the way, whoever said earlier, because I know that these things kind of move through quickly, but whoever said earlier, where is Spanx? When you're seeing the lifeboat emblem and my hands are here, that's Spanx. He's here. He's just busy doing Spanx things because that's what he does. He's our resident producer and overseer of all things electronic and technical. I hate moving and I don't hate many things, says Jason P. I get that, Jason. So does Spanky. He just moved. Johnny and I just moved. I think everybody involved with the boat in some way has just recently moved. It's and it is a stressful thing. So speaking of stressful things, this isn't the subject matter that's going to be fun. We're going to talk about some stuff this morning, and if it feels like it starts to trigger something in you, I'm going to say two things on this. If you feel like it's starting to trigger things in you, that can be a really good thing. It really can. We don't get a whole lot of growth without being triggered. Sorry, but it's the truth, right? You kind of got to pull the trigger in order to achieve growth. It's not fun, right? But if growth was fun, everybody would be growing. Lisa from New Jersey says, I never want to move again. I'm sorry to hear that. She's recovering, you know. She's got back problems. And
even if you don't,
you know what? I know, but it just sucks. I know. I don't know what you're going through, but I do know what you're going through. Like I got mad back issues. Johnny's got mad back issues, more than I do. If you can believe that, but he does. In fact, it's probably way worse than I do. Johnny's got a jacked up back. Tampa B man, I've been triggered. Wow, that moved quickly. I've been triggered in the last week here. Hopefully I don't bug out this time. I don't think you're going to bug out. The good news, Tampa B, is you're back, right? So if something triggered you here and it made you work through some stuff, then you come back. That's how it's supposed to happen. But if we don't push a little bit, right, then we don't get to the part of the onion where we go, holy hell, this is why I get wasted, right? This getting to the part of the onion. Lisa, our thoughts and prayers are with you when you go to this doctor, and I hope that, I know you're a communicator. Well, Tampa B, that's not always the best. It isn't. Ignoring it because it doesn't work. Honestly, we don't have the ability to ignore things. So if you feel like that's the route you're going to take in something, get a pen and a piece of paper and ignore it while writing it down. That's just my humble opinion. And I'm not a smart man. I'm not. I'm a retired bank robber who did a ton of dope. Right. BJ's Critters, good to see you. That's really, where it is. But I am, by the way, I'm going to be putting up another, the next yoga video will be in a chair for those that have been requesting, because I got a lot of you. So we're going to be doing some yoga in a chair. Okay. It is coming. Valerie, I really hope that move goes smooth for you, hon. We love you. Now, childhood trauma. This is something that everybody at some level can relate to. Now, for some people, it is going to be the most minimal. Some people had very, very blessed upbringings. I was one of those people. And it's hard. I really feel very difficult when I talk about this subject because I'm out of my depth, right? In terms of this is not my life experience. However, I have talked to a lot of people who this is their life experience. In fact, the vast majority of you, this is your life experience. Yeah, the nurse who loved me said, "Oh boy, my childhood marinated me in trauma," and I think that this is a sentiment we're going to be probably seeing again and again today, right? And I want to bring up something that I want you all to think about. I do shows with Reese often, and I really enjoy it. And one of the reasons I enjoy it, the clowning around and the fun is fun or whatever, and the flirting, but the stuff that we do that's heavy, right? When Reese and I talk about subject matters that are hard to talk about, we get to stuff that affects everybody, not just Reese or myself. And when Reese made reference to the fact that she couldn't picture prison, to her, this was the most terrifying concept in the world. And she said, "Oh man, there's no way I would trade," right? Because to her, the concept, the unknown of what prison is, right, is so frightening that what she endured in her childhood seems like she would be far better off taking that route. Now, you understand how unusual that is, right? For me to try to wrap my head around because of the childhood that I had, for someone to say, no, I would rather go through what I went through, right, at the hands of this cult than go to prison. And do you know why this is, people?
The devil, you know.
Yeah, the devil, you know. But here's the problem. I was watching somebody in an interrogation video. I researched these stories and whether or not we're going to take the stories to the boat. And I was looking at one of these stories, and there's a guy talking and being interviewed by the cops, and there's a missing child involved. But at one point in the interview, this guy who is a pathological liar, and you do not need to be anybody with any training of any kind to go, this cat's a pathological liar, right? You'll figure it out very, very quickly. But there's a point in this interrogation where he says, the kids loved being in that house, referring to his own. And you know what? You watch this thing and you would come away with, he meant that. It was one of the only things this cat said that you could tell he was telling the truth. And you know what? They probably did at times. Kids grow up around war, right? Kids grow up around whatever, and they have zero point of reference. So if you're a child who's 2 years old and there are bombs going off around you, in your head, there are bombs going off around everybody who is 2 years old on planet Earth. There's no point of reference, right? There's a great book, Barbarians at the Gate. I don't know if you ever read this, but there's a scene where they're landing a plane, and there's a guy who's making a lot of money by getting people to fly to Mecca to make their trip, and he's packing planes with people that have never been on them. No one's ever taken a flight. They're getting on there with chickens, and well, the plane comes down, and it comes in for the landing. And when it does, a wind lifts the back end off the ground. So the plane's literally coming in on just front wheels. As the plane comes back down, this thing spins sideways, goes down the runway, comes up on one wing, and then comes down and slams. And then everybody just stands up in the aisle and starts grabbing their luggage because there's nobody on that plane that doesn't understand that that's not how a landing is supposed to happen, right? To everybody on that plane, that's just a landing. They got 0 point of reference. They've never seen a plane come in and go and everything go nicely. So as far as they're concerned, it's like, wow, I got to come up with a more efficient way to do that, right? All right, let's get our stuff. But nobody on there had any point of reference, and neither does a 2-year-old. Right? So whatever a 2-year-old is enduring, they don't have any point of reference. They don't know. Correct, Shannon Smith. They're still clapping, right? They were happy as hell on a perfect landing because they don't know that that's not a perfect landing. Now, the funny part is there's 2 people on that plane in the story that have an absolute idea that that was not a good landing. Right? but nobody else on there does, and they marvel. It's a great scene. So they marvel at the fact that, holy hell, there's nobody else on this plane that even realizes that we almost started. I mean, that we almost just ended our life here on this on that landing. But we do not have a point of reference that while we're in that it's not normal, right? We have to have a baseline for what is normal. And sadly, if you grow up in that abusive situation, right? That's normal. That's the baseline. And the problem becomes we then go into life and we have to adjust because we didn't get all of those things that we were supposed to get when we were young. You understand? Davey, this is something I hear all the time. Sorry about that. I was jealous of others who had good families. I was always somewhere at home. And I think that as kids, we don't notice this stuff until we get older. I remember now looking back, right, at kids that just loved being at my house, right? Kids that just went out of their way to be near my dad, right? And this was a real thing. You know, there were people who really dug positioning themselves. You know what? I'll tell the story. My best friend in high school did drugs. We all did. But he was a football player, and football was a big thing in my town, right? It really was. It was a very small town, and it was a big deal. And he didn't come out for his 11th grade year. For we're doing double sessions, and my dad was driving through town and saw him on the village green. And my dad pulled up in the truck and said, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you not at football?" And he said, "Moose, I'm playing this year." And my dad said, "The hell you're not. Get your ass in the truck." And picked him up and drove him up to football practice and said to the coach, "Hey, he had a problem getting here yesterday, but he's not going to miss any more days." Right? Then the next year, Lurch tried it again, but he was 4 days that he had missed. And we actually had to vote as a team whether or not to let him back. But once again, it was my dad that went and tracked him down, right? At the time, I just thought he was a pot smoker that didn't really. But over time, you find out what really goes on in the house, right? I remember the first time I went to his home. Oh my gosh, sweet call. The first time I went to his home, they took a shotgun out, which they had, and his mother was at work. And they blew a hole. Johnny was there, this big in the living room wall. Now, we're in rural Vermont, but he blew a hole in the living room wall. I said, how are you going to explain this to your mother? No joke. The people that his mom worked for one day said they drove her home from work. She never allowed that to happen. One day they drove her home from work because her car wouldn't start. And she just kept saying, "Look, I got a ride that's coming." And when the guy that owned the bar took her to the top of the hill and saw the house, he said, "You're not staying here. Go get your kids." Took them to a hotel. And that man, my uncle, oddly enough, and 2 other people, I didn't know this at the time either, but They all decided that they were going to build a house there for her because she had been a waitress for them for so many years. And they did. They built her a beautiful home there. But you know what? We were clueless. I didn't do anything to be kinder to my friend. And in fact, good God, we were so unkind to each other that, but in his world, that was normal. The struggle, right? The struggle is when somebody realizes that wasn't normal, right? When the realization kicks in that what I went through is really jacked up and it's not like what other people had. That realization sometimes is more than people can handle. For real. This is very, very often more than people could handle. So listening to Reese say that she would swap with me, I want to tell you something. Give me 10 more years in prison. For real. I pulled 25 years in prison before I would do what she did. Good God, Laker dog. I would imagine that this is going to sound familiar to some people, which is sad. Parents divorced, mom became an alcoholic. At 12, I listened to how bad my dad was. He didn't want me. That she knew he molested me. He hadn't, etc. The trauma went on for 44 years. I would imagine it's still going on. But you can't pick your family, right? I mean, you get what you get. No. You can pick your family. You can. Sadly, you can't pick it when you're 2. Spanky, I think you nailed that. He says, I don't think I'd want to grow up without love. And boy, oh boy, when you listen to the stories of people who are second gens, the shock, the reason that we can't look away, the reason that we are so frigging addicted to listening to what that cult did to second gens is because anyone with compassion and a heart, right, looks at this and says, no, right? We understand personality tests lead to a snowball effect. You obviously don't go in there and say, we're going to show you how to not care about your kids, right? It's obviously not that way. Cosmic Christie, thank you for your bravery. And I'm so sorry. I really am. But when I say today to anybody here, I am so sorry, I do want you to realize I'm not pitying you. You hear me? That's a dog crap emotion, and you're never going to get it from me. I promise you. I am sorry that that happened, but I got nothing but respect for you and how you're dealing with everything. Honest to God. Cosmic Christie's doing it, and she's doing it with the world watching, which I think is unbelievable. No, we don't. Jen Marie says we don't want pity. I don't think anybody that survives anything wants pity. And if they do, get away from them. For real. That's frightening, right? Frightening. The pathology behind that, I don't think I would want to be anywhere near anybody. Millie, I'm sorry. I really am. I can count on one hand the time mother said she loves me. My childhood was rough. Then I learned about hers, and I had to forgive for both our sakes. Her dad left her on the side of a road. Oh, my God. Cosmic Christie, thank you for putting that succinctly and, I don't know, perfectly. She said, my mom was the victim, not me. And empathy is great. Pity, no thank you. Everybody get the difference, right? The desire for 176 people here to understand where Cosmic Christie is coming from, right? That's a beautiful thing. The fact that none of the 176 here want to go, oh, no, no. I think we can all keep our eyes up, right? We don't have to look down. We can all keep our eyes up, our chin up, right? Survivors absolutely deserve support. They deserve empathy. They deserve respect above all else, right? Because I promise, typing in the sentence, my father was a P, right? That was not an easy sentence. I would imagine it's gotten easier the more times that it's had to have been typed. But that's not an easy sentence. It's never going to be an easy sentence. You know, it just isn't. Lumen, I'm so glad that you're here. Yeah, no empty platitudes. We're not fans. We really aren't. People, Places, and Perspective says, I've also had to remember in life that people are also resilient and not look at oneself as damaged. Acknowledging yes. And I've had therapy that's helped. You know what? I've heard different people look at this differently. Because I'll be really honest, I am absolutely damaged. But part of the way that I went through therapy was to acknowledge that. And maybe it's because of my particular brand of what's wrong with me. But I don't struggle with that as much, because I do know I've done a decent amount of damage, right, to myself and to others. And it is a word and a term that, for whatever reason, has really become a very big part of my line in the sand, right? Like, I'm not doing any more damage, not to me and not to others. Now, at least I certainly attempt that, right? The Hippocratic Oath thing gets a little tough when you do this for a living, because I don't sugarcoat a lot of stuff sometimes. And there are times maybe I need to be a little bit nicer. But, the other option is you start BSing people, to save feelings, and that can kill people. We're not farting around with, with ditchweed. The stuff on the street today is killing people at a pretty alarming rate. My parents divorced when I was 5. Hadn't seen him since due to the laws. My dad wasn't allowed around us. I was emmed by my brother for 2 years, by my middle brother. I'm the youngest. Stellar human being. So I'm sorry to hear that happened. I really am. I've never can understand it. I just heard Johnny Scoville whistle from like 3 rooms away. So it's so painful. It is. It's painful to read. But you know what, people? These are the parts of the onion that aren't fun to get to. But you know why we do? For real? Because if we don't, right? If we do not allow this an avenue to escape, it's going to come out your mouth via communication, or it is going to tear a hole in you to escape. And every single day, I talk to people and I work with people who have had holes torn in them because they refuse to communicate. And then they try to patch those holes, right? And the type of patching that they do, sadly, is not this type of patching. I've done shows on this. It's a beautiful art form where they take pottery and that is cracked and broken, and they repair it with gold. It's one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen. And I've done some stories, some shows on it. I love scars. I've done shows on this as well. I love scars. I don't love track marks. I don't love that they're there. But you know what? If you knew how many times I've gone up to talk to somebody who's in the life, right? And they look at me like I live in a different world, right? The world that I live in does not understand a drug addict. The world that I live in, right, is privileged, and they can't wrap their dome around the fact that I may have been exactly where they were. And there's just something lovely about being able to roll up my sleeves and go, you see that right there? Okay, I can tell you that one, right? You want to see, like, I can just go down the list and instantly this person looks at me and I'm no longer the dude in front of the microphone, right? I'm a dude that needed a 10 bag, just like they did. It's funny how when we all start to realize that there's more that brings us together than separates us, right? You know what we call that? I bet you do. We call that connection. When I was 9, a stranger tried to kill your soul. I'm sorry. Oh, between the ages of 14 and 16, a teacher assaulted her in the worst way possible. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm tearing down the monsters that haunt me at night. God bless you. Wow. That's really one of the most, I'm proud of you for not suffering in silence. That had to be a very difficult thing to type as well. I love you. I'm really glad that you're here. I mean it. Connection. This is, yeah. Physical scars do not hide the hidden scars. There was a woman that I dated that she punched me in the face. That was the end of that. I don't do physical violence. I can't raise my hand to a woman. I never will, ever. So if she punches me in the face, my only option is to leave and never come back. And she hit me so hard in the face. Honestly, it was one of those things that, floored me. If there had not been a refrigerator behind me, I would have hit the ground. But when I first met her, I said to her, "Hey, there's something you should probably know before we get too deep into this." She said, "What?" I said, "I'm a heroin addict." Now, I was lying. I said that I wasn't currently using, which was a lie. But I told her I was a heroin addict, and I had to because these track marks were not, 15 years old. These track marks were fairly new, and so the as I'm telling her this, she said, "Do you, are there any residual effects from you quitting?" And I said, "I don't have Hep C or HIV, if that's what you're asking me." And at the time, I didn't have either. I said, "But I've got a lot of track marks." And she was not a great person. She really wasn't. But he said a great thing because at the time we were at a dinner and she said, "Tommy, everybody has track marks." She said, "Yours are on the outside and people can look at them, but everybody has track marks." And I'm telling you what, it got her a second date. we it really did. Like, it sealed the deal. I was blown away that somebody said that. As it turns out, it wasn't necessarily viewed exactly the way it was described, but it was a pretty good sentencing. You know what, Nico? I love that. I love that. Kristen, right? It's a beautiful thing to say, is it not? Okay, so, yeah, the scars that hurt the worst are the ones that you can't see. I promise. By the way, thank you for your service. I think that this is absolutely worth talking about because of the number of heroes that we lose every single day in this country. It's horrific. There are literally dozens, right, of American heroes that leave here every day by their own hand because we don't do a good enough job taking care of them. And I often talk about the fact that I'm a one issue voter, but that would be the only other issue, to be honest. And how did I get addicted? Are you asking me? Sweet koala. How did I get? I got addicted. Well, I was born addicted, to be really honest. But what happened was I was a skier. And it started out with injuries. and started on pain medication. And sadly, I had a lot of injuries from skiing, and I was the Sackler generation. I was one of the people that ended up at a pain management facility that said, "How about 12 OxyContin 80s a day?" 12 OxyContin 80s a day. That was my dose. Just pretty frightening, right? But sadly, when they take you off that, your tolerance is pretty rowdy. You know, that's that's a pretty rowdy habit. So from there, I went to smoking what I thought was opium off of tinfoil. Sounds stupid, but I didn't know any better. I really didn't. So I started smoking opium, and pretty soon I got to where I was smoking about $300 or $400 worth of opium a day, maybe $500 worth of opium a day, and I made enough money. I was a public speaker. I was making great money. So I just continued to do it and do it and do it and use and use and use. And then somebody said to me, you know, if you put that in a spoon and inject it, it'll cost you like maybe $40 a day instead of 600 a day to smoke it. No, a couple of things that happened by that point though. I used to really love the taste, and I got addicted to all of that, the whole ritual and every bit of it. Yeah. I mean, that is all. 12 OxyContin 80s. That was all. But well, that was all for OxyContin. No, I also took at the same time. I had Demerol for breakout pain. I had morphine sulfate in a liquid that for breakout pain that you put under your tongue in grape flavor. Used to get that as well. Yeah, that was the business. That stuff was but very, very thick. They made it thick so you couldn't snort it. Honestly, like the doctor even said to me, he's like, when you put this under your tongue, it's really, really thick. It's going to like gunk up your mouth, but we do that so you can't snort it. And it worked. You wouldn't want to put that stuff up your nose, but no, that's what I was. And then I started shooting the dope instead because it was cheaper. And pretty soon, you know how that story ends, right? Then I got to where I was shooting $700 worth a day. And that habit from smoking, I could never stop. So I always, smoked a gram or two on top of it every day because I was addicted to, that was the hardest thing for me, was to give up the ritual and the taste and all of that. That was harder for me than the drug. The ritual of heroin was the hardest for me. But yep, that was it. That is it. Yes, heroin is opiates, opium. All of it is. So here's the deal on that, right? The morphine molecule. The morphine molecule is what attaches to the ME receptor in your body. It comes in a bunch of different varieties. But no matter whether you're taking a Loratab or you're taking a Vicodin or you're taking a OxyContin 80 or a Percocet 30 or whatever, you're taking the same drug. Your body is going to take whatever the hell you put into it and turn it into morphine anyway. So if you take heroin, right, which you could test for the first 6 hours as heroin, it doesn't say heroin, it says monoacetylmorphine, 6 MAM, 6 monoacetylmorphine. That means you tested for heroin. But if you did the heroin at 6 o'clock in the morning and they test you 6 hours later, right, then what you're going to test for is morphine, because your body is going to do whatever it has to do to reassemble this so that it can get it out of your system, right? So that's what happens. People all the time in prison, you hear them all the time going, "Oh, they said I failed for morphine. Like I could get morphine in here." No, but whatever you got in here, your body turns into morphine, right? So when they took the P test, that's what you tested for. But what it comes down to is everything is a variation of the morphine molecule, including bupe, right? Bupe is an agonist and an antagonist. So technically, it never came from a poppy, and it doesn't do exactly what heroin does. But it acts on the same receptor and it acts close enough so that it makes you think it's doing the same stuff. But all of it is just a variation on the morphine molecule. Dennis from Boston, greetings from the 413. Says Tuesday Thomas. Listen, I want you guys up in the Massachusetts area to be really, really careful. All right, for real. The dope in that area is poison. It's already killed one of my friends, and I saw the autopsy. So on the streets, right where you are living right now, there's xylazine everywhere, right? Everywhere. So, unbeknownst to my friend, and we talked about it all the time, but unbeknownst to him, what he was buying was trank, and it got him. So please, if you're out there and you're buying Perk 30 pills, you know they're not Perk 30 pills. There's nobody in America that still thinks you're buying a Perk 30, right? Hey, Scoob, take a deep breath, right? Because you get frustrated when you get misunderstood, right? So take a deep breath, Scoob, and I promise, very often our inability to understand people in their situations isn't the fault of you, it's the fault of us. So since we're not there and in it, take a couple of deep breaths and hang out. And then maybe we'll try again to understand you, and maybe we'll do a better job on the next round. But I don't want you to walk off upset, Scoob. Please, please don't. You know. Thank you. So why the need for people in recovery? Why is there this deep down desire for us to connect? Well, as I said, we don't have any point of reference as a child. You're having a very tough upbringing at the age of 2. You don't have another 2 to compare it to, right? So this is your first go around, and for all you know, this is just how it works. And kids are resilient as hell, and they'll adapt. Doesn't mean it's a good thing, I promise you, but they will, right? They absolutely are going to adapt, and they absolutely are going to start uh, to figure out a way through. And the horror stories, where I know that most of you are familiar with concepts like dissociative identity disorder, DID, where what a child endures is so bad that they create literally a place to go so that they can be safe. And very often, this is where you see like the chasm where it literally splits a personality so that somebody can protect themselves in one personality and then allow the other one to sort of thrive, so to speak. It's amazing what the human body and the mind will do to allow the organism to survive. Right? But one of the things that we need to survive is connection. And we should have it from the time that we're about 2. And people who really struggle with substance abuse, one of the reasons that we do is because we trade connection for dope. We didn't have connection when we should have had it the very first time, right? We should have had it from mom and dad. We didn't. Now, throughout the life, we go and we seek that connection, but it's so unnatural when we feel it in a human being that it repulses us because our baseline has no point of reference. You understand why it is so important to raise a child, right? So that they see what love is? Huh? By the fact that kids see what love is, right? When they watch that, when they go out, they can actually make connections and they will not feel repulsed. If your baseline, right? If your baseline is abuse, love is going to hurt because it's so foreign. It's just like the drug addict, right? It's just like the gambler. Our baseline is I've lost all my money. I got nothing in my pocket and I'm desperate. So if I just hit a $10,000 jackpot, I got to get it back into the machine as fast as possible because I don't know how to be a winner. I got to get back to baseline, which is I got no money in my pocket. I just blew all my money and I loathe myself for what I just did. That's baseline. So if you drop $1 million on me, I'm going to have to figure out a way to get rid of it. because that $1 million feeling is going to repulse me. Doesn't make any sense, does it? But I promise you it's a fact. So what we need is connection. And unfortunately, we struggle so hard with it because it just doesn't feel right. Enter, right? Enter the common rallying point, right? Group, one thing in common. What is it? The thing we need to work on. That always helps, right? So if it's addiction, or if it's, you're a survivor of abuse, whatever it is, when you come together with somebody that you know understands your situation, now you've got someone whose baseline and your baseline match. Huh? Or maybe you got a room full of people whose baseline and your baseline match. Can you see why this would cause healing? Huh? And then if we start learning to connect with people whose baselines are like ours, right? Two things can happen. Number one, we start working on this connection thing. We're not going to be nearly as repulsed because their baseline sucked as bad as ours did. Right? We could talk about how bad our baselines were, and it gives us something to rally about. Now, the next thing you know, we're actually starting to let this connection thing work a little bit, right? Honestly. Second thing we're doing is we're not suffering in silence. The second thing we're doing is we are giving an escape to that crap that wants to tear a hole in you if you don't give it a place to escape. You feel me? Right? The idea is, God, that's the truth. My therapist said I have repetition compulsion. I repeat behaviors and situations because it's known. I've never heard the term repetition compulsion. However, I do know what you're talking about. And I talk to people every day who do this. They'll watch the same movie 5 days a week. They watch the same movie 5 days a week, right? They tend to wear the same clothing. They tend to do the routine has become so important, right? Because those situations give us some form of control when we have none. When we're kids, right? When we're kids, we have zero control. The control lies in the people who are abusing us and not treating us well. We have zero control over our lives. As a child, that's just how it works, right? We are at the whims of the caregiver. Frightening, but it's the truth. We have absolutely no control. You will see kids, right, do the oddest things, right? Because when you take all control away from somebody, adults do it too. Watch convicts. They get in a cell. You take everything away from them. They got nothing. You drop them in a cell, and every single one of them has a routine that they're going to do for the first 2 hours they're in that cell. It's either a cleaning down routine, or they're going to make it look a specific way so that it's different than everything else, so that they get something. But there's always that, here's what I'm going to do, because I need to take some kind of control, right? I can't do a damn thing. I got to control something, right? You ever insult somebody? You ever go up and start talking to somebody and you go, hey, man, I wanted to talk to you about this. You said some stuff the other day that really kind of bummed me out. They will instantly start to fix their clothing. They'll start to do whatever, adjust their watch. Why? Because you've just made them so uncomfortable. They have no control over the situation. They're hating it. They're reaching out for some kind of control. Give me something that I can have any control over, because at the moment I got zero control over anything. And we hate that as addicts. We hate it. So we'll go into routine behaviors because they're going to, we're building ourselves a new baseline. It's not great, maybe a little bit better than what it was. We're going to up the bar a little bit, but we're not going to get outside of that, because then we're going to get into uncomfortable, right? We're going to stay in a comfort zone of doing the same kind of things. But I mean, you are probably raising that baseline, right? Because that's the idea. And that is why we're connecting, by the way. The more that we connect and the more that we don't suffer in silence and we talk about the things that we've endured, right? As all of these things happen, in theory, that type of connection heals. You hear? Heals. Jen Marie, you nailed that. Nailed that. I'm not laughing at you, Jen Marie, because you're 100% right. I'm laughing at Becky. This is funny as heck. Becky says, just told my husband, no, you cannot wear that Hawaiian shirt with your camouflage shorts to the dentist. I don't know. Sounds good. What was the footwear? I mean, was he wearing penny loafers or Tevas? Because that could make a difference. The nurse who loved me. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. I am glad that that you are here. The Real Scummy says, why? Thinks that's probably not such a bad combo. I am going to go with this. Becky, if you were my significant other, I would be very happy, because I am the kind of guy that might walk out of the house wearing. I've been known to put together some bad combinations, and there were times in my life when I was married, and it never bummed me out when the wife would go, "Oh man, you got to trust me on this one. That's not a combination you want to put together, right?" Venus Blue Jeans, good to see ya. Happy you're here from Panama City, Florida. Queen of Awkwardness, good to see you. Says, being part of this crew has helped me heal more in the last few months than 10 years of therapy did. Oh, how cool is that, people? Do you hear that? Huh? Oh, wow. How cool is that? Because of what takes place right here. Anthony Powell, good to see you. Because of what takes place right here, right? More healing in the last few months than in 10 years of therapy, because the kind of group stuff that we do here really is unique. It really is. You understand that normally, I wouldn't be in a group of people that were talking about childhood trauma. I probably wouldn't, right? That's not something that is super relevant in my recovery. Thank God, right? I had other things that caused my issues. But what happens on the boat, which is unique, right, is that we get 195 people, right, or 200 people or 600 people or whatever we got at the time, who are going out of their way to try to understand, to sympathize, or to empathize rather, with whoever happens to be sharing at the time. There is really, Tree Hugging Buddhist, have a great time. Tell your therapist we say we love him or her. This is one of those things that we have a support group. There are gamblers in here. There are drug addicts in here, right? There are alcoholics in here. There are people in here that have never had a chemical problem of any kind. There are people in here who are, for all intents and purposes, normies, right? Although I don't think normies exist. I've told you that. Since the advent of the cell phone, the smartphone, there's nobody on earth that doesn't have an addiction. Nobody. If you're not addicted to food, you're not addicted to drugs, or you're not addicted to a cell phone, right? Or social media and whatever the cell phone allows you to get to, I want to meet you. Where is that person? Because it seems to me, remember the airplane we were talking about and how it landed and nobody seemed to know? I'll tell you what, now when you see somebody land an airplane, the first thing that happens, I mean the first thing that happens, is this puppy comes out. I mean, before anybody does anything, they're checking to see if they missed any likes, how many people gave them a thumbs up while the plane was in flight, right? They're on it. I honestly have made myself a promise that I'm not doing it until I see 5 other people doing it, because I don't want to look like the biggest junkie on the plane. Okay. And you know what? I'm doubting that most of those people on the plane got 20,000 people that might have left them a message while they were in flight. I probably got a reason to turn my phone on real quick, but I don't want to look like I'm waiting for that door to open. Okay. Even if I am. Love this channel. As a trauma survivor, being here has helped me so much. Was just talking with a sponsee yesterday about how much we need connection to truly heal. Well, I'm glad that you were, because it's a message that's catching on. I did not come up with this. I just freaking love it. But again, what really makes this It is such an unhealthy addiction. It really is. What makes this unique that we're doing here is we're not branching us off into 500 different groups, right? We don't go, okay, Jason, your problem was alcohol, but the beer drinking alcohol people are over there in room 4. The hard booze people are in 5, right? So you go into the hard booze room and they go, gin? You go, no, it's bourbon. Oh, no, dark liquor, 2 doors down, right? Maybe that was a great idea at one time. Maybe it really was a great idea to get the idea of maybe if we just keep paring down and paring down and paring down, we'll get people that are so comfortable with one another that they're going to be able to do this. Thank you, by the way. I love the connection, dude. But maybe by not paring it down, maybe by not saying what color's the booze you drink, or maybe even saying maybe the cocaine addicts and the drinkers, maybe they're not that far apart. Maybe they're in the same boat, right? Or maybe the person gambling and the person who's doing blow, maybe they're in the same boat too. Because I'll tell you something. I've worked with a group of people that do both, and I promise, if we just got rid of, if you didn't know what the vocabulary meant, right? If you didn't know when they were talking parlay, if you didn't know what any of the terms meant, you would not know the difference between 8-ball and parlay. I had a 4-teamer, or it's the same compulsions. They really are. What's going on in our brain doesn't change. You understand? Honestly, the fact that your poison's different than my poison is really irrelevant. It really is. It's completely irrelevant. This all started, believe it or not, this lifeboat thing, right? This was called the Tommy Scoville Show because I'm wildly creative. Right? I called it the Tommy Scoville Show. And then people just kept saying, you know what? It doesn't, someone would say, oh, I'm sorry, we're talking about this or that. I'm a drinker. I didn't know what you guys were talking about. What? Literally, people would show up and be like, oh, I thought this was an alcohol meeting or whatever. What difference does it make, squirrel? You're just trying to be a bad kitty. I see what you're doing. What difference does it make? And we just kept coming back to this thing that we're all in the same boat. No matter where you think you are, no matter what you think you got going on, we are all in the same boat. It's how this cool channel got its name, right? You know what? This is a great comment. Having children of your own makes it even harder to understand childhood traumas, but it also made me the best possible parent I could be always. You know what? There are times I think maybe if I had it a little worse as a kid, I would have been a bit better of a dad. For real. It's yeah. But I'll tell you what it has done for me is it's made me realize what I did, and it is what it is. There's no going back. If you struggle with what I struggle with, right? My son's here. He's listening to this. If you struggle with the fact that you would have been a much better parent if you weren't doing drugs or alcohol, guess what? Get over it. Sorry. But you could destroy the rest of your life and the relationship that you have with your kids. Or you could draw a line in the sand and say, you know what? Today's the day that we're going to bury this. There are times it's going to come back. There are. And when it does, communicate with your kid. Call them and say, you know what? Today's one of those days that I'm feeling like the worst human being in the entire world for how I raised you. Don't suffer in silence. You'd be really surprised. The first time I did an interview on here with Mike and Spanky, and I was talking to him about the past, and the takeaway at the end when he said to me, I don't have a memory of anything you're talking about. I remember great Christmases. I remember this. I remember that. I had, over the course of the time that I was incarcerated, created in my head what his childhood was because I knew what I was doing during his childhood. You understand? I knew what I was doing. So he had to have, right? Like, and I always tell people, kids aren't stupid. Spanky knew something wasn't right. To be sure, he wasn't stupid, but he really wasn't, it It wasn't like it was in my head. I wasn't this thing that I had created, the most evil human being in the world that I had created while sitting in a prison, for 13 years. That's what you do. You don't sit in there and think about all of your achievements. Sadly, you just don't. Even if you wanted to, I don't think you can make a freaking list of them. Comment, it's amazing how one word can put everything I've intellectualized into perspective. Baseline. One simple word. Thank you. Cats, bats, and flowers. Thank you. You know what? I remember, I'm not even being funny. I remember baseline being an epiphany for me. I really do. I remember baseline being an epiphany for me, and not in relation to me and not in relation to trauma, honestly, but in relation to other people. This was a very big concept. I remember reading it in a book, and it is something that is, I think we understand, right? I think it's something that we can all wrap our head around. Anthony Powell says, so I just want to say on a side note that 5 years ago, I was sticking needles in my arm, getting high. And today I can say I'm in week 3 of college and getting all B's. Anything is possible, folks. Oh boy. Huh? How about that? Huh? How good does that sound? Anthony Powell. Boy, oh boy, man. You better savor the flavor, right? Familiar with this concept? I mean it. Drink this crap in. Write that sentence, but feel this. Drink this in. 5 years ago, you were banging dope, right? And now you're in college, week 3. You know that you now have, at a bare minimum, about 190 friends that are going to want to know how you're doing on week 4, right? We call that connection. Right? People connect. They get a vested interest in actually caring about the outcome of what happens to people in their sphere, right? Can't choose your family, right? Sure you can. Sure you can. By the way, Anthony, keep doing what you're doing. A's are fascist. I'll never like them anyway, right? And C's just seem kind of, eh. B's are just fantastic. I think that that's awesome. That's right. Oh, yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can, says my sister Jen. Right? Oh, yes, you can. You didn't get, yeah, A's are pointy too. They always feel like they're pointing at people. There's something about an A that just seems judgy to me, right? Kind of just sitting there judging you. Never let your past define who you are today. Let it be an inspiration for positive changes. Break the chains. Fantastic piece of advice, right? From a hero. God bless you. Brianna Miller, do you know why? I'll tell you why. This is great, by the way. Brianna Miller says, Anthony, I don't know why, but that just made me smile so hard because you just found connection, right, with Anthony Powell. That's what just happened. When you find yourself smiling at the success of somebody else so hard that you just don't know why you're smiling that hard, huh? You've connected on a real level, right? Talked about this word the other day, right? When emotions used to ejaculate, you're not allowed to use that word anymore because now it means something completely different. But the Bronte sisters used it all the time. In fact, all old writers used to use it all the time because we used to explode with emotion, right? Brianna Miller smiled so hard. It was like, yeah, right? How cool is that? I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I get it. Woo! Woo! Man, I love that. Dude, I really do. I love that. Anthony Powell, you should be a criminal defense attorney. You should. Man, you should. Tell you what, when you get rolling on that, you let me know. I'll I'll help you study for that bar. I spent more time in a law library than 99% of people who aren't lawyers. I promise you. Spent a lot of time in law libraries. Anthony Powell spent a lot of time there. Hold on. One moment, please. I know Spanky's getting mad. This is an important one, Spanks. Okay. I'm going to tell you something else for the ride. All right? Because this one's going to help. Honestly, I want this one to help. This is going to help everybody pay attention. This is a good one. Okay? I'm a caveman. You understand? No lie. I'm a caveman. I'm not, I didn't get hit with the woke wave, right? Maybe I should have. I can't, it doesn't catch me. You understand? I don't have any hatred to anybody. I don't. I really don't at all. I have zero hatred for anybody. However, right? I do not understand the world that I live in. And that literally is the truth. I'm a caveman, right? Now, that said, I absolutely could not care what anybody does with their love life, with their sex life, with any of those things, right? Truthfully, none of those things mean a crap bit of anything to me. We're never going to judge anybody here for who they sleep with, right? Providing that the person is old enough to consent. Ever. We're also not going to care about who you pray to or how. I'll tell you something. Here's one. We got a policy that says we don't do posts that say my God's better than your God. We don't. But if somebody puts a post up that says I wouldn't have gotten through this without God, if you find yourself offended by that, ask yourself what's going on in your life. I mean it. If you're offended that someone said God got me through that, why is that offending you and what's going on in your life? Because if you popped up there and said that your cow got you through it, I'm not going to be offended. I don't give a crap that your cow got you through it. If you say that it was your dog that got you through it, I'm happy as hell that your dog got you through it, right? If by some chance your dog getting you through it offended me, I'm going to scroll by. But I'm probably not going to decide to draw a line in the sand that the fact that you mentioned your dog is going to destroy my day. Now, if the mention of your dog says, Tommy, you're stupid for not realizing that the dog is going to save you, okay, you got to go. You hear me? But if the default setting isn't kindness, you're on the wrong boat. Feel me? Your default setting isn't, I really just want everybody to kind of be happy. I think people can scroll by Ice Dottom. I think they can. You know what? I think that we all got into a mindset. You know what you can Google? Google movies or books that are being canceled and why, and it'll crack you up so hard, you will laugh till the end of time. You know, the father from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, he's a degenerate, right? He could afford cigarettes, but he couldn't afford to help the family. He was a malingerer. That guy wasn't really hurting. Did you notice that as soon as at the end, when he got after the golden ticket crap, he jumped and danced? And do you realize there are people out there pushing this narrative as hard as they can? It was a freaking movie. Get over it. Right? It's a movie. Let's try to have a little fun. They're canceling Dr. Seuss because he's a racist. Did you ever read The Sneetches? It's a story of these people that show up and they got a star on their stomach. The star-bellied Sneetches. They had stars on theirs, but the other people didn't. And it was racism, right? At 6 years old, they were teaching you about this. The star ones were cool, but a guy shows up and he says, I got a machine that can put a star on your stomach. Cost you $1. Turn you right into them. And he did. Trouble is, the people that had the stars first, well, they're a little butthurt now because everybody looks like them. They're not special anymore. But he says, don't trip. I can have those stars removed from you. And now they got people going into machines, getting stars put on, taken off everywhere. And the machines blow up. And you know what? At the end, nobody can remember who had a star to start with or who didn't. Problem in this world is that we all seem to really remember about the stars. I don't think it makes a crap bit of difference what you got on your stomach. I don't know whether I have a star or I don't have a star, but I know I was saved by somebody whose stomach didn't look like mine. Maybe we scroll by something if it's really not all that offensive. And if I just offended you, maybe you can just hit that unsubscribe button. I mean it. I didn't just say anything mean. I didn't. I just want people to get along, man. I just, honestly, if you're sending, before you send me a complaint email, reread it and ask yourself, do I really want to fire this off to the captain? Am I being petty? Or why am I doing this? What is it that's really offending me? I don't know. Maybe it does offend you. And if so, hit that send button. Shannon Smith, I would rather not have people here, love, who are jackasses. Quit pushing people away. Yeah, I'll be really honest with you. I'd rather not have people here that are jackasses. See, as much as connection is important, stop. As much as connection is important, right? If you throw an apple into a bushel of apples, right, and that one apple isn't supposed to be in there, it will turn that entire bushel rotten in a matter of minutes. So if what I'm saying is offending anybody, I would like the people that stay here to have their default setting be kindness, right? That's all. The other option is I'm going to say, we're going to continue to do this, and I'm not going to read any more emails from anybody. And then this ain't going to be the lifeboat. So maybe I'm just not that nice a guy. But you know what? Believe it or not, I love you guys. I really do. There are times that's more difficult than others. I guarantee you, everybody who's a parent can understand this. Yeah. But I do love you guys. Shannon Smith, I love you too. So I am going to go out and work on this call-in thing. We had it yesterday. Calhoun had it. I blew this. So we're going to see if we get this nailed out today, because I am really, really thank you, Donna. Hey, Donna, if I ever say something and it offends you, but you feel like you need to see the other side, reach out to me and say, I'd love to talk to you one-on-one, and I'll do it. And you know what? Maybe I'll walk away with your point of view. But if not, I surely will walk away with a better understanding of your point of view. You know? That's not such a bad thing. We used to do that crap all the time. Yeah, it used to happen all the time. Wasn't such a bad thing. You know something, Jen Marie? I found something interesting out. Jen Marie says, we're like snowflakes, all beautiful, yet not alike. True. I'd like to think maybe fingerprints, right? They tend to be there longer, right? The snowflakes may not be around as long, but that fingerprint, right, is unique to everybody. So is the snout of a pussycat. If you take, apparently the snout, the muzzle, like the nose and where the whiskers come out, absolutely unique to, there's never been two that are identical. And I think that is awesome. I really do. And I would like to look at every single one if at all possible. Johnny on a pretty regular basis will bring me over a picture that he found online just of like the perfect cat snout. It's always pretty cool stuff. All right, peeps. I am off to do some productive things. Calhoun, where are you?
Yo.
What's happening?
Good morning.
Yes, it is.
Gonna get that call on working today?
That's the plan. The question is, can I do it? I know that you can do it. The question is, will I be able to handle it? I think we'll probably. Go ahead.
I think we try to get you to do it first, and if all else fails, I'll come do it.
Well, that was a polite way of him saying it's just a matter of time before he's gonna come here and do it. But he's a good kid. He was giving Dad an out. He's a good kid. That's what he was doing.
You're getting really good at pressing the buttons, dude. I have all the faith.
Thank you, Calhoun. You're a good kid. You really are. You're a good kid. But I'm gonna blow it. I really am. I really am not great at that. Becky USA, well, we love you and we're glad you're here. And tell them maybe a khaki pair of pants, pair of shorts. You know, I don't know. Khaki always is good. If you're a guy, you can't go wrong, right? Put on khaki shorts, and then it doesn't matter really what shirt you put with it. It's hard to mess up matching anything to khaki, right? They're like jeans. Like, what shirt are you going to put on with jeans that doesn't look right? You're safe, right? Is it me? It's not me. It's him, right? All right. All right. That's it. You done, Calhoun?
I don't have anything to say.
All right. People, we will see you on the next one. I'm Captain Tommy. That's Spanky. Bye-bye.